Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Today, it's an absolute privilege to introduce our extraordinary guest. We have the privilege, as I said, of hosting, I feel, a truly inspirational individual who not only embodies the essence of self-love, making sure we start with ourselves, as hard as that is, and personal growth, but she also plays a unique role in the journey and the kickstart to our passion project, Middle Fingers Up. So I'd love to welcome, and if you can all join me in welcoming Nisha. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, Karen.
How are you?
I'm good. That was such a nice intro. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm not even done reading it, but I thought I'd introduce you first and finish with the rest, because I wanted people to hear your voice and know that we're going to talk about why we're part of the start to this podcast journey in a second. And that's sort of why I was so glad you said yes to coming on. But I also want people to hear, and I want you to be here too when I'm saying this. I want you to know, and I want others to know, that your story for me was a testament to the resilience of human spirit. We talked about shortly after welcoming your third son into the world, you faced a heartbreaking loss of your father. And in the midst of this whirlwind of postpartum and all these experiences, I can't even imagine. I've had 2 boys, so having 3 boys going through this, and then the weight of grief and loss, and let's also throw in the relentless demands of daily life. Somehow you find yourself in this place of darkness. And I think a lot of people probably can share and understand what that darkness can look like when you're going through all those things. But this conversation today isn't just about the darkness, because we like to also talk about and balance with hope and light. And that's why you're here, because in these shadows, I feel, you talk without even talking about it. I hear the inner light that began to shine, and you had this moment of extraordinary courage, and you did something that many of us, I think, find incredibly challenging, present party included, and that was reaching out and asking for help. And that's why you're here today. You're here to talk to me about how the F did you, in the midst of all that darkness and heaviness, find a way to open a door, crack a window, get some light, open the curtains, whatever it was, to say, fuck, I need some help. And I think we miss conversations like this every day because we don't realize how much it takes to do something like that. So that's why you're here today. And that's why that's the joy that I'm so excited to share is for those of you listening today that are in the same boat of, for all the reasons I get in the way of asking for help, this one's for you, because hopefully, like Nisha's inspired me, I'm hopeful that she will do the same for you guys. So okay. So there's your intro, buddy. There you go.
Yeah, that's so nice. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on. And I was taken back when you even asked. I had no idea. That I inspired you like that. It was like news to me. So it's really nice. It's humbling. Thank you.
Yeah, you are like the perfect guest, because you're one of many people that has so much to give and offer. And I know when I asked you, you're like, what? Me? and I get that from a lot of guests that are like, what? Me? And sometimes even I'm like, what? Me doing this whole thing? Because I think we get in our heads and we think that I'm not valuable, or what can people take from me because I have so much work to do. And I think we forget that we're all in a similar boat. It's a bit different for many of us, but we're all in this kind of boat where we're just trying to do the best we can. And sometimes we need more than 1 or 2 people around us to help us get through or push through, right?
Oh, yeah, hands down. I mean, today's world too, everything just seems so perfect. Oh, look at my perfect family. Look at my perfect kids. And you show this stuff on social media, and then behind closed doors, everybody's just not with it. And It's reality. people go through some real things.
Exactly. And like, what do you think that's about? What do you think? Because I know our community, South Asian community, and honestly, a lot of communities where people of color have immigrated here, and we talk about this, parents sacrificing, doing all this stuff for us so that we can have a better life, right? But I feel a lot of us can share this connection. I know for sure in our community where from the outside, you're like you said, we look like we're this perfect family that should be on the cover of a magazine. No one really knows the struggles we're going through. How come we don't talk about those struggles? Like, why do you think it is that way?
Honestly, I think when like our parents and stuff too, they came here. They had a mission. They started from nothing. They moved countries and they had so much to do. Providing is no joke. They probably just kind of swept everything under the rug for them. And then here we are. We're like, we're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And the education towards like mental health and people speaking out is just becoming more normal, which is really nice. And back then, I don't think that was a thing. The doctor, you're depressed, okay, like take these pills or whatever, and then you just kind of move on.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That was the answer for stuff for them. And again, we probably don't even know what medications our parents used to take if they did. I think that it's nice that like the world is just becoming more aware of like mental health. They talk about it in schools now. Educating yourself on the subject is so important.
Yeah, I agree. Educating ourselves, and that can come in so many different forms. That could be even as I think most impactful, talking, just calling that person up or finding that person that we truly feel we can have an open conversation with can be so therapeutic in managing what the heck's going on. You know, sometimes reading's not for everyone. We can't all afford to take a course or a class. We all have different learning styles, and sometimes even therapy is not for everyone, right? And so I think it's just figuring out like what is for me so I can not put all, because I see a lot in our community, it's like, what is for me so I cannot put all this weight on my body? Like we see so many physical ailments that are getting in the way. Like you mentioned medications, that's such a big thing for people in our community because these medications, the hope is they'll help us feel better, and they might help one thing feel better, but it's not all the things that have happened. Well,
yeah. And this kind of, so now it's almost 2 years where it will be my dad's 2-year death anniversary. And my son just turned 2 yesterday. So it's been 2 years since I've been on this like journey myself. And I know my own resources, like, for example, working out, meditating, all that self-care stuff. All that stuff for me was so powerful before, but then during, nothing was really working. Mm-hmm. So it's always, that's like, it kind of goes back to like that whole, like, never give up, like, don't lose hope, because sometimes you exhaust all your resources and then you're like, okay, now what is really wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I find it could be challenging for people. Like, unfortunately, you can't figure it out yourself. You ask for help. And like you said, therapy doesn't work. So what else are you going to do? Mental health's a tricky thing to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into with you sort of the light, how we got to this light. And we're going to do that in a second. I thought we could pause for a second and chat a little bit about the healing room. So we're talking about finding ways. Maybe this is a good time to bring it up. Finding ways that can help us and not giving up, because sometimes we have to work a little harder. Like you said, working out can work sometimes, maybe not all the time. But then it's like really looking at what are the things that help me so I can keep feeling good. And when I don't feel good, what are the things that I need to do to take care of myself? And I think in the midst of your, 2 years ago when you were in a really rough place, you come out on this other end and you have the healing room. So, we're going to talk about your story. We're kind of going backwards right now because I'm asking about the healing room first, and then we're going to get into the story. But let's start there. Like, tell us about where did the healing room come from, and what's that about for you? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so the healing room, back during COVID, we all had a little bit more time on our hands to kind of do things. And so I ended up taking like Reiki courses and crystal healing courses, and ended up like really diving into it and just really becoming like obsessed with this whole healing and energy world, and how crystals are all made up of energy, and they can help us and they can enhance like our healing within ourselves. All the tools that we use, they kind of enhance your own abilities to be able to heal within yourselves, because we all have that power. It's just sometimes you need help to do that. I've been doing Reiki on my kids and my husband, Sonny, for years. During this whole process of this last 2 years, I've really come to the conclusion that I need to do this. I need to do Reiki and do crystal healing. And the healing room to me means just a space for somebody to come, lay down on a bed. It's not a massage. Put some music on and let me just clear your energies. Let me clear your headspace. And I've seen people and they have walked out of the room and they look lighter. They seem more grounded. So it's really incredible because the power of meditation as well. Meditation can mean so many things to people, but actually just lying on a bed, listening to music, and just kind of letting your mind go where it needs to go without thinking too much, it's a form of meditation as well. The healing room is also a place where we all have energy centers in our body, and they're the chakras, which I'm sure that a lot of people have heard about, but they hold emotions. So what the Reiki and crystal healing and the energy healing does is it opens up these centers, these chakra centers that we have. And it could be from your crown all the way down to your root, and it work through each one of them, through your heart. If you're dealing with some grieving, or if you get headaches, it could be related to something that's going on in your crown system. So there's different chakra centers that we have that with the Reiki, and you can get your chakras cleansed out, which gives you a whole balance, because we end up holding things sometimes, and sometimes that could lead to feeling tension in our neck or tension in our knees. And so if we work on them from a spiritual level as well, it helps with how you deal with them, like on a physical level. Like it's all hand in hand, like mind, body, and soul kind of thing and everything.
It's always so fascinating when we talk about the different ways that we can really reconnect with the body and mind, because so many of us live so disconnected from that. We think it's two separate things. That, when you talk about grief and loss, I'm dealing with this heartache and this pain. If I'm not managing it somehow or acknowledging it, and I'm just leaving it, it's gonna somehow
show up.
In my body. But my body can only hold on to that for so long before parts of my body start to, need me to go see a doctor or whatnot. So I think that I'm curious, like, about clients that you get, or even from your experience, about like, what are some things that you guys share about what that connection feels like afterwards for body, mind, and spirit? When you're walking out, like you talked about being light, but what are some other things?
Usually if I'm doing a session on somebody, I can kind of start to pick up areas where there's a little heaviness. So it could be in one of the chakra centers, or it could be like, because we have auras, and our auras are connected to cords. Sometimes we have like energetic cords that connect to other people, or like in very negative situations. So you can feel some heavy stuff sometimes, but you clear it. And so if you're suffering from headaches, yes, okay, go see a doctor and stuff and whatever. But this also helps. It helps this whole aura, the energy, like the spiritual side of it, of your body and your soul. It does. It really, it makes a huge difference, because our heart center is known to hold a lot of blockages. And it's the way that your heart center is in your chakra system as well. When you're working on it, and when your energy, you're clearing all that. Oh, you're helping to bring out this energy. I remember when I got a Reiki done too, and she was working on my heart, I just started like crying. It just came out of nowhere. So a lot of people, you could cry, or
there's a release attached, hey?
Release. Yeah. I mean, it depends what's going on with you, but sometimes I'll pick up stuff and I'll ask, and then it could be quite related, or it couldn't be, but it's usually something. Or I like to know if there's something that's going on, because then I'm able to understand and see what it is. If it's like anxiety, or which is Reiki's amazing for anxiety and stress, because it calms you. Mm-hmm. It's a place for just calm and just letting go. And so there's a huge benefits to it. So I really, really vouch for this as a way for healing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't always have to have it figured out, but just giving yourself that 10, 15 minutes. My sessions are an hour. It's such a grounding space. And yeah, I really, I'm excited for it. I'm going to be launching it pretty soon here. And I think it's going to be a really nice space for me. And the fact that I'm able to help people, my hope it excites me.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think there's definitely something in this place of being a positive member of society, being able to give to people. I think it's a nice balance because we take all day long in so many different ways too, and to feel like we can provide a space for people. You can provide this space for people to come and let go. You mentioned, because you probably see this in the room, like you kind of brought this thing to me when you said, you're in the room, it's an opportunity to sort of let go and kind of see where your mind goes. That can be, I would imagine, scary for people, because I know for someone like me, I'm the oldest, so it's not my fault, but it's that control manager running the show kind of mentality. Everything's got to go a certain way. Let me plan how this is going to go. And it's a survival skill, all these sorts of things. And that's just me. So everyone has sort of their own thing. And for many of us, they tell us this in yoga too, right? Like you got to let go, but it's so hard because you go do one recreational activity, let's say laying there with you for the Reiki, and I'm there to be present, but at the same time, all I can think about is all these other things I got to do. And if I let go, I think sometimes it's like, what can actually happen? It can be scary. Like how do your clients, or how even for you, like how have you sort of worked through that?
Of course, yeah. When you lie down and when you think and you kind of let your mind go and you're like, I just can't relax. There's something about like the energy exchange, and it's part of the work that I do. And it's Reiki, it's energy healing. So it's actually like intended to just make you feel lighter. It's tended to just kind of like take you to that space.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not work like maybe the first time, but it's very rare that I've ever seen it not.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can, your clients, like there's hope, right? Like your clients have this ability to even when you're the client that's laying there, you feel too like there's hope that, oh, I can kind of surrender. It's like surrendering, right? In some ways.
Yes, but yeah, I went last Christmas. My older son, he was kind of going through. He just kind of like mentally just didn't seem like he was, So I started doing Reiki on him, and after our sessions, I told him to draw me a picture of kind of like what he saw. And he would draw pictures that I was just like blown away by, like mountains and him sitting in a cave in the mountain and in the far away. Like it was just this magic place that he went to. And yeah, it's really cool doing it on kids because they love, first of all, they love like crystals. They love like that whole playing with them and stuff. And then it's just kids have amazing auras and energy. And so doing it on kids is just, you see them kind of relaxing. And my older one loves it. Like the minute I say like, we'll do a Reiki, he'll be like, yes, let's do it.
Aw, yeah, that's amazing. And even like the pictures, because kids, you're right. They're so, I'm not really trying to say innocent, but there's purity, right, in children. And you're so right that it's really cool that you got him to express through drawing, because it's hard to talk as a kid, to get him to draw what that's like. And yeah, that's a beautiful way to paint a picture of relaxation. If you're thinking of the mountains, nature, being in a quiet space, all those sorts of things. I think that's amazing. Have you ever done a before picture?
No, and I should, but yeah, kids are really cool to work with. It's really cool to give them that just like safe space to just kind of like meditate and just not think. And it's just the power of healing. It just like the energy exchange. It's such a beautiful place to be.
If people are interested in getting in touch with you, maybe they want to contribute to, the path you're on with the healing room, they have some knowledge that they're in the business, or maybe someone's really interested in reaching out to you to for an experience. Is there a place that they can get in touch, or will you, like on social media, be letting us know soon when you're launching?
Oh yeah, like I will let you know. But right now I'm on Instagram, the Healing Room 848.
Okay.
If anybody wanted to reach out. But yeah, I will be posting on there as well, and I'll share with you as well the new links and all that stuff. So you book an appointment or whatever it is.
That's awesome. Congrats. I think I was just talking to someone else about this too, like no risk, no story, right? Like taking a risk and doing something, like starting a new venture, is always a thrill because we don't know what's going to happen. You're going to learn about yourself. You get to connect with clients. There's going to be all sorts of stuff. So I think good luck with that. I think that's amazing that you're going to put something positive and productive out into the world. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited. And, I think it's just nice to offer for this, and I'm able to do it. And through my practice with my own family and stuff, I've realized I got something here. I need to share it. So
yeah. And how cool is it to be able to say that to ourselves? Like, I got a skill here. I have a talent. I have something that I can tap into. Because so often we're doing the opposite of, I can't do that. I'm not, like a lot of us talk ourselves out of so much. So it's cool to talk yourself into it, like that's awesome to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for sure.
All right. Okay. So let's do our middle fingers up. I'm going to ask you, what did you bring to put your middle fingers up to today?
Honestly, middle fingers up to staying quiet and being told that it's okay to just be not okay. Middle fingers up to just staying quiet. No, it's not okay to just stay quiet about how you feel or what you're going through. So middle fingers up to that whole stigma and that whole not okay.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. And I'm curious where that comes from. Like, have you had times in life where you stayed quiet when you feel like you shouldn't have?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been times you stay quiet and stuff, but with what I went through 2 years ago with having a baby and then losing my dad, it was a huge wake up call for me that I needed to do something for myself. Nobody really says like, don't say anything or stay quiet, but I just think that it's just too normal in our community to just not speak up.
Yeah.
Say that I'm not okay.
No one's necessarily saying don't talk. I mean, in some cases, yes, you grow up being taught don't talk to other people about what happens in our home because it's like, protecting your family. And then for some people, it's you don't want to burden people with your problems. You don't want people to feel sorry for you and stuff. So like, what do you think is for you or was for you at the time where you chose that path of, I should just stay quiet. I shouldn't say anything.
Well, I had lost my dad. I had a baby. And then like about 6 weeks later, my dad, he passed away. And during that 6 weeks, he was slowly dying and he ended up passing away. And I don't know if it was just like a total numbness for me of what happened or what was going on, but I just kind of carried on. And then it was just, okay, I'm taking care of the baby, taking care of my kids, getting on. My sister was, she's grieving, my brother, my husband, we all kind of just went through something really difficult. But I was going through something like unique in my own way. I was dealing with postpartum as well. Mm-hmm. So I went to this like really dark spot and I'm like, okay, you know what? This is not where I'm supposed to be. I don't feel like myself at all. So I just kind of realized that I think kind of like when you stop feeling like yourself, it's just, I need to check in here, like what's going on, right? So that's where it was my wake up call. Check yourself here.
Yeah.
You might look normal, but you're not.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm going to follow up a couple of questions to that in a minute because I think we'll get into your story in a second here. But I just want to circle back to that quiet thing. I think it takes so much to stay quiet. But I also think it takes so little to not stay quiet. Like, it's just so weird how much work we put in to stay quiet. So all the things we do around ourselves, if you think of a leaky faucet, you're just like putting tape on it. Okay, instead of fixing the big problem, why don't I just semi-permanently fix this? But eventually that tape's going to wear off and now that there's going to be leaks everywhere kind of thing. And
that's where like everything kind of comes back out. Doesn't matter if it's the next day, 2 years later, 20 years later, things that you like bury inside you and you hold, you're not meant to do that. It's going to come out somewhere or another. It's going to come out in either anger, sadness, like some sort of emotion. And it's better to just deal with things. And, obviously there's a time and a place and it's not that easy, but staying quiet it's not the answer. That's why I give my middle fingers up to it, is just It could be a range of things. I mean, some cases are more severe, some are less, but just all in all, don't be quiet and don't be ashamed of who you are. Be you and be able to say it how it is.
Yeah. That's a good one, man. I would say it's a really good one to put our middle fingers up to. And like I said, we're going to circle back to your story in a second, but we'll finish off with the segment here. It's funny that you talked about it's not okay to stay quiet, because today, the thing that I'm putting my middle fingers up to is the moments we find ourselves as bystanders in other people's events. So it's funny that this comes up today too, because, I'm talking to you who helped me, and you didn't even know you helped me, but you helped me start the podcast. And episode 1 of the podcast was about pretty traumatic racist incident my sister and I went through here at the National, which is a very well-known establishment. There's many locations. And it was the hurt and the disheartening experience of those, even loved ones around us, that stood by and were bystanders. And even after the incident happened, didn't support us in the way that we realize now we needed to have been supported all the times we've experienced discrimination. But then in this last week, why I actually bring it up today is in the last week, I've been part of 2 now incidents where bystanders could have done something different. One was a loved one on vacation experiencing, again, another traumatic racial experience. And often, we deal with, we deal with the nasty people that say the things that they say to us. But the hurtful part is when the loved ones or people that you look to around you don't do anything, and they let you keep going through that, and you feel like you're a crazy person. You feel like, those dreams where you're the only one that's drowning and no one else is helping you or recognizing, except this is real life and you're out right now trying to have a good time, and all of a sudden it's taken away and there's loved ones standing there and they won't help you.
Yeah.
And those loved ones sometimes will tell us that we need to stop making a scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Hey, you just relax. And you're like, would you tell me to relax if I got shot right now? Would you tell me to relax if somebody at the bar came up to me and stabbed me right now? But just because I didn't get stabbed and I'm still wounded by these, you know what I mean? To me, I'm just putting it out there today. Well, I'll tell you, the second incident is my youngest son, ended up getting in a fist fight on the school bus by an older kid who clearly was struggling with something, because this older kid overreacted to my son's response as a joke and started punching my kid in the back of the head and in the back. And my kid is little, but man, this kid is like a fucking fighter. And he kudos in the moment to him to fight back and held his own. And there's a bunch of kids on the bus. There's a bus driver and it's chaotic. We've all been on school buses and no one here is to blame. But it's just an example of, I'm talking about, at the beginning of my middle fingers up to adults that stand around. But all of us adults teach all of these kids on the bus to do exactly what we've been doing, which is no one helped. No one stopped. No one said anything. No one later came up and said, "Are you okay?" These kids don't know to do that.
Yeah, no. So then what did you do? How did you handle that with him? What did you end up?
Well, he came home and he was quite emotional. He told me about it. And, we talked about is he okay? Obviously tending to him. Is he okay? And then he walked me through what happened, and there was maybe something that my kid could have not done, right? There's always something we cannot do. So we kind of pointed that out. But truthfully, this other kid, unfortunately, just like I said, when I sent the email today to the school, I did say I'm actually quite worried about this other child. He's older. And when someone jokes with you and you respond with violence, to me, that's a red flag. Something's not going well for you. You're having a rough week or what. I was actually quite worried for that other kid. That
fair enough.
What kind of shitty place do you have to be in to think when someone makes a joke, boom, you punch them?
No, I know.
And there's no alcohol involved because we usually that's an Indian reception, right? By the end of the night, someone says something and boom. But this wasn't one of those kinds of things. So the school responded well, and I just said like, this is a pattern now forming. So let's try to help these kids, right? So that my kid's not in this situation. This other kid isn't going to have to be in a situation like this. Like, can we keep an eye on them? And the school was great. They said, yeah, we're going to assess. We're going to figure this out. But again, it's not pointing fingers. It's just like I'm inviting anyone that wants to be part of, and I'd actually like to put an episode together. So if anyone's listening today, reach out to us, because I think we need to figure out if we've ever been in that place where we are the bystander, or like you said, we stay quiet. Why do we choose to do that? Do we think we have a right to do something else? Like, I don't think you're just a bad person because you were I think there's a reason why. It's just, can we be curious about it so we can encourage safely? What are some ways that we can respond, right? And sometimes you it's not responding, like even this person that experienced this racial experience I was saying in the story, the adult that experienced it, like maybe sometimes the situation happens quickly and in the moment, like, we don't know what to do. We have fight, flight, fawn, freeze, all those things. But it's also like after the situation, how can we tend to each other? Like, it would be like applying first aid, right?
Yeah.
Until 911, the ambulance gets here. If I did get shot or stabbed, like, hopefully you can figure out how to help apply pressure on the wound until, and so in this case, right, like, this person can go see their therapist or talk to someone about this incident. But I just think like there are ways that we can help people feel validated, and that no one should have to be discriminated against or have violence towards them because we're having bad days. Like, those aren't good enough reasons to put other people in those kind of positions.
Yeah, no, that's a really good topic too, because people do, like, as adults, like a lot of the times, and I'm guilty for it too, you'll just kind of like turn your head and just like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as extreme as like actually witnessing like a racist act happening, but we do kind of turn our heads to a lot of things, right?
It's like we get uncomfortable, but I think it's like, for me, I'm asking myself, what are the reasons I'm getting uncomfortable? Because there are right reasons to get uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to get stabbed too, but I'm going to figure out how to help you. But at the same time, if I'm getting uncomfortable because of the person that, was, let's say, the racist person, because of them, because I don't want to put them out, or because we're giving them the power, like, fuck that shit.
I know a few times, Sonny, because he won't stand that, right? He won't take that. So if there'll be a few incidents before in the past, and he'll be super loud and like vocal about it, and I'm just like, okay, let's just tone it down and like relax and everything. At the moment, he's like, fuck this. Like, I'm not listening to this shit.
Yeah, totally, right. And like, I agree with you too. Like, yes, there are ways. Like, you can't rationalize with the irrational person. I learned this working in crisis, right? Like, if I've lost it and I'm up here, my hand's above my head right now, and you're trying to, you should not match me. You should try to help me if you can get back to another level. So definitely not saying, if we're out there and someone's, being just, racist towards us, we get to say whatever. It's also like fair if you get reactive, because anyone that's been in that situation has been judged because of the color of their skin knows it's very difficult to not be reactive. Like, that's hurtful, that's upsetting, it's a trigger, right? And so I can also understand Sunny's response too, of like, what the fuck, right? And it's just, and you know what? I want to say this.
Are we really dealing with this? Like, are you really dealing with this? Like, no, you can't be less, like, you don't really know how to process it at the moment or something like that, right? It's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to your sister? You're like, did this actually happen?
Yeah. Right?
It feels so unreal, right?
Yeah, totally. And the thing is too, and I just want to put this out to Calgary, us YYCers who are striving to better our city. The man that attacked verbally and emotionally my loved one here was visiting from Calgary. So there you go. They were on a holiday. They were elsewhere, and this Calgary man. So I just like, we can do better, people. You know what I mean? Like, we are not representing, and the conversation started out all about how wonderful Calgary was. He decided to fixate on my sister, who was the only person of color at the table, and tell her how wonderful Calgary is because it's all about the conservative, right-winged, powerful people.
Wow.
That's how it started, and then in the end, it ends with yelling aggressively, "I'm not racist." Have you ever in your life as a person of color ever had to ask yourself, am I racist?
Yeah, no,
Right?
I
Like
know.
if you have to say I'm not racist, that's a
Yeah,
problem. Like
no.
we need to like go dig deeper, buddy, right?
Like my son too, like when he first started learning about like racism and stuff, he would just come home and like randomly, like I would be saying something and he's like, "Mom, that's so racist." And I'm like, "Well, do you even know what that
Yeah,
means?"
yeah. They
So
totally,
then like
yes.
I say, okay, be like, "Listen, buddy, like that's not a thing here."
And don't take advantage of saying that too, right? Like that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Cause like my boys will do that too. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't speak like that. And yeah, you're right. And let's talk about what it actually is. Yeah, it's an interesting time to see how our kids are going to be managing these sorts of things as they get older, right? But I just know right now there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And for folks that feel like we've done a lot of work, I think we just have to I challenge it because I think society has found ways to hide the way the racism is coming out. So it
Yeah.
feels often like, oh, when people are like, that still happens? Or,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I get, are you sure that's how you heard it?
Yeah.
like,
You're like,
like,
"No, I heard it and
yeah.
I
It's
felt
like,
it."
it's like, yeah, I no, that doesn't still happen. And it's like, okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
I think we got to talk a little bit more about this. And I think people of color, like it's hard for us too, because a lot of times throughout the day, I was telling a white friend the other day, I'm like, do you know how many times in the day I would lose friends? Coworkers would probably stop talking to me. I'd lose my job if I mentioned every time an interaction that happened
Yeah.
was
Wow.
a comment because of my color.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like we just
Yeah.
hide it. We don't respond every time and say, hey, because like it's exhausting, right? But we
Yeah.
also have to understand we gotta keep
Well, it,
doing something about this because it's like ridiculous.
yeah, and it will be like nice to hear more episodes on this as well from you. You got this amazing platform to talk about all these wicked topics, and congratulations to you for even starting this and
Oh,
doing this.
thank you.
This is what we need to talk about, and it's so important for our kids too. Like you said, your son's friends listen. My son's gonna start listening. For kids and stuff too. They're gonna go through this shit.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Yeah.
go through it.
Well, they are, because sometimes my kids will tell a joke. And it's a very racist joke. It's equivalent to those three guys walk into a bar, and you always know that's like three guys from three different races. And so we've been saying to them, right? And so like where they're at now, it's like, oh yeah. So we've been helping them understand, like you guys have a bit of a challenging position because your friends are going to see you as white. Look a tanned version of white, but they look mixed, but they identify sometimes at school as, kids growing up in Western Canada, right? These kids were born here. So they already get this whole piece about people assume they're not people of color. So I have to remind them, like, you start conversations and you walk into rooms as a person of color. You're not, like you have to understand. And, and then we also have to teach them, they have to recognize the privilege side. But school, some of these conversations, they're learning, oh yeah, we shouldn't be talking like that. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, your friends are joking, but you guys have to help them understand. You can't join.
Yeah.
Like, you think that's funny? That joke is mean to your nana. You think nana's gonna like that?
Yeah.
Oh shit, right? Then when you nanny and nana and mussy and then everyone else comes up, right? You're like, oh shit, right?
Yeah, you're like, this is home for me. Like, what are you saying, Mom?
Yeah. I don't want to go about this in a bad way. I don't want to put anyone that is white in a like offend you either. Like I see people making efforts. I also want to have a platform, like you said, for people of color that there's no space. Like Carrie's trying to get an audio book the other day because we're trying to bring more writers that are of color into our house. And he's trying to get these books, and the Calgary Library doesn't have any of them.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's a problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. So, we got work to do. Says the girl that married the white guy, but
Yeah. It's a good combo for this kind of work.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about, you mentioned the platform. You're so important to my podcast because we briefly touched on a couple of years ago, you had your baby, you lost your dad. There's lots of things going on. And a couple of years ago, I was also working through that whole experience that happened at the National. I kind of shut down. And this podcast was on my mind. And like I said, my sister-in-law was such a big help in saying, we need to do this. But I didn't feel like I could at the time because of not having the confidence and all sorts of things. And then you DM me one day and you were like, hey, so prior to the time you DM me, we met like 2 years prior to that once. We went to a supper with our husbands through a work thing and we exchanged numbers. We got along and then we didn't really talk to each other after that. And then I get this DM from you and you're like, hey, yo, like, how are you and all this stuff. So I remember you're in mental health. I'm looking for a therapist. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, I'm not one, but like, okay, we can figure that out. And you had briefly mentioned you lost your dad and all that. And you were asking for help. You and I didn't really connect after that. You know, we had a quick thing, you figuring out the help you needed. I didn't want to pry. We didn't really get into it. And then recently you and I have been messaging each other. And I just had to tell you that episode 1 talks about the incident at the National that was a big part of this. But the day that you messaged me was when I reached out to my sister-in-law and I was like, we need to do something for our people because I just talked to someone that needed help. When do we ever ask each other for help? We don't know what that means. That's not even in our language. I don't even know if you can say it in any of our languages, like asking for help. Like, I don't even know how to say it in Punjabi, seriously. You know what I mean? It's like, please, we don't know how to say please and thank you. And then we don't know. And so her and I were talking about it and I was like, this is what we need because we don't know where to lean or turn to and we're not all okay.
No, we're not. And I honestly, when we met too that time, I found you like super approachable. You were friendly. We had a good time. And I don't know what it is about you working in the mental health field that just stuck out to me. And I'm like, at this point in my life where I'm like, I need to get help here. And me sitting on Google and like looking for people to talk to and therapists, like it just wasn't, I'm just like, okay, I need to go through my list and see. And then I was like, I'm going to ask Karen. And I'm just like, I had some hesitation, but I'm like, I'm going to ask her. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm going to ask her. I'm going to put it out there and see what she says. And then you kind of like directed me. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And then it just kind of gave me a little bit of just keep going, like keep getting this. Like, you'll get the help. Just keep at it.
Can we break it down a little bit? Like, I understand. I don't want to pull anything out that may be difficult as well. Like, I understand when I talk to like guests like yourself and you guys share your stories. This is your personal life. These are some really painful moments. So I definitely don't want to pull anything out and I'm trying to be respectful. So I will push as far as you'll let me. But I'm wondering if it's possible to talk a little bit about, okay, before you reached out to ask for help, like what were the things that were going on for you? Like what you mentioned briefly earlier that you sort of just kept moving on because after your dad died, because you had so much going on and you mentioned postpartum. So, and you almost mentioned like a little bit of this like, denial or like kind of paralyzed or like didn't really focus on the death at the time because you had other things happening. Can we talk a little bit? Like, for anyone that might be experiencing postpartum or grief and loss, I'm sure they'll appreciate. And now I'm guilting you to talk about it, right? I'm like, do it for all the listeners, Nisha.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, hey, I lost my dad. This is horrible. Like it was horrible. But then for me, postpartum kicks in. And then that was like a whole different game, and it was the moments of like sitting with myself and just not liking what I'm thinking and it actually making me feel sick. I couldn't bear with that. That's when I was like, okay, you need to get help because you are literally like my stomach would turn. I would get sickening feelings just even from my own thoughts. Mm-hmm. And I knew this wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me, and I knew it wasn't okay. But I didn't know how to go about bringing this up to people around me. Like, I just didn't know. Because I'm very much like, I got my stuff together. I'm very like, okay, I'm a mother. I got the kids. And it's just, I had to just kind of put this thing up and just do and do and do. But then it was really catching up to me. And I would start getting like really intrusive thoughts, and they would disturb my sleep, disturb my eating, disturb just the person I was. I wasn't even able to like pick up a phone and like text somebody in a normal way. I was just really fogged up. I wasn't doing well. But looking at me, you would just be like, okay, yeah, she's great. So it made me really look at the world differently. Like, I would go out and be like, damn, if I'm feeling like this, I wonder how many people right now are driving the car and thinking, oh, I want to just run through the red or do this. Like, people are going through things and they're thinking these thoughts. So I ended up, I dealt with this for a while. I stayed super quiet, and I just kept on going with them, but just started seeing the world really differently and maybe like a darker place. And I ended up telling my cousin, Tia, who had actually went through a loss of her own, a really close loss. She ended up losing somebody very close to suicide. And he was very, very close and near and dear to all of our hearts and all of our family. It was a big shock to all of us at that time as well. So she was very much aware of this side of the intrusiveness of your mind. So she was a very big help to me, and we're still learning how to deal with his loss as well. I told her, I said, look, I don't feel good. I'm not right. And I don't know what it was. She was like, I get it. And I was like, okay, you don't get it, because like, I'm just not okay. And she said, no, Nisha, I get it. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I just kind of brushed her off. And then I got into it with her. I called her and I said, look, like, I'm not okay. I have really bad thoughts. Like, I want to actually like hurt somebody. And I'm looking at my kids and my baby, like, he's so small and like the most precious thing to me in the world. Like, I love him so much. And, I can't even walk up the stairs with him without having this fear of like me just, dropping him or something. Or it was just bearing down on me too much. And she told me, she's like, Nisha, there's this book on intrusive thoughts. I'm going to send it over to you. And she ended up sending it to me. And it's just how our thoughts play such a big part of our mind. And the more attention you give these nasty thoughts, the more sticky they get. It's like an actual thing. Like, they just become sticky and sticky. And it started just opening a whole different world up for me. And again, when I reached out to you, that's when I was like, I think I might have even reached out to you before I even read this book and stuff anyways. But yeah, I was just like, I need something here. Cause I'm very like, let me work out. I know, okay, I got to meditate. Like I told you, I've been to this like crystal Reiki. So for me, somebody who's like so spiritually in touch, or which I like to think I am, I really felt like, what the heck is going on? I can't do anything to make myself feel better. And that's not like me. And I blame that on postpartum, like completely. Like I didn't feel like that with my two other boys, but obviously the grieving had a huge effect on and then now I sometimes see, on Instagram, moms will be like, oh, just make jokes about like, having intrusive thoughts about your kids. But it's such a normal thing that is, wow, it's so frightening to think certain thoughts. And yeah, so it was a real struggle for me. And it just taught me a lot about the importance of how to, how you like control your mind, and you can kind of control like everything. So yeah, that was a big thing for me. When I started feeling things I'd never felt before, I was like, hey, I need help.
Can I ask, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for coming out and reliving that and describing the feelings and the thoughts and feelings that maybe in the moment, what would make you feel like you're a bad person, embarrassing, like what, what would be the reason why you wouldn't want to come out and tell people that I'm not sure if I can be safe around my kids? Like, what mother wants to admit that?
Yeah. And I was terrified. Like, are people going to be like, okay, you know what? You're not suited to do this right now because you lost your dad and all this stuff. And no, like I was like terrified. Like I'm like mama bear at this point. I got like a 3-month-old. So like, as me being super protective and everything like that, I was besides myself inside, completely. Just at some point, I couldn't even finish doing the dishes in the dishwasher because I would see a knife and then my thoughts would just get so sticky again. And I would just have to like pull away from it, and I would just do something else, or I would literally go in my room and cry. So it was a really tough time for me. And I ended up really realizing that I needed to open up about it.
Do you remember the moment? Do you remember the moment that brought you to the place where you were like, okay, did it ever get to, if I don't tell someone, then something dangerous might happen?
Yeah, like I didn't think I was gonna actually, like, I didn't know, like I didn't think I would do anything actually. It was just making me really sick.
But can I ask you, you didn't think you were going to do something, but did you think if you told someone, they would think that you would follow through with it?
No, because no. Yeah. They just knew me too well. They would just, yeah, no, so I told my cousin and she was like, yeah, and she answered my phone a few times and I said, look, this is what I'm thinking. And she's just like, yeah, no, they're just thoughts, Nisha. Like, they're just thoughts. And it just kind of started from there. This whole like, okay, now I got to figure this whole other side out. And I used to listen to podcasts on intrusive thoughts, and it just opened me up to like a whole different world. Whatever goes on in your head, don't always believe it. It's just, there's a lot that could happen. And I think with postpartum and stuff, these are natural things that women go through. And it just sucks if there's women out there that are actually going through postpartum and stuff, and they have to suck that all up and they don't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah.
Like they can't find means to, so reaching out to you is like definitely something out of my element, but I realized I had to like figure out a different way, because I did go online and look for help, and I would start off, and like anybody else would start off asking for help, but I was like, let me ask Karen, because you were super approachable. I remember you just being like so nice and down to earth. I didn't feel worried or anything like that about your response. But yeah, I did have a bit of hesitation for sure.
So I'm really glad to hear that you felt very comfortable, and honestly, like I am glad that you did reach out, and I don't know how helpful that was or not, but what I do know is that left such a big impression on my heart, because like woman to woman, mom to mom, brown girl to brown girl, like it's just like you showed me and opened this door for me that was, okay, like it is so important to ask, because we're so worth it. We're so worth it, where we have to understand that asking for help means like we care about ourselves, but really care about those people that we take care of all day long, that we care for more than ourselves. And I learned that you're also a middle child. So you and I were laughing about that. I've been dying to do an episode with my siblings about where we fall in line, right? The oldest, middle, and the youngest, because you know what it's like. There's stories. And so I was making fun of you. I'm like, oh man, you middle children. But one thing nice I will say about you middle children, you're literally in the middle, right? You're trying to balance one end of the spectrum to the other, right? Like your other sibling. Yeah. So you grow up with this skill where you can call it a skill, or some would call it a curse. It's like you guys are pleasers. You want to make sure we're all okay. And, if the big sister's okay, then the younger brother will be, or, however that falls for you. And you guys have this way of like reading into the parents and making sure, while the oldest is being the oldest and the youngest being the youngest. So there's a lot of pressure that you guys have. And I would imagine some of how you grew up probably fell into play when you kept not telling people about it, right? When you kept thinking, oh, I'll deal with it, because that's probably what you would be used to doing growing up all the time. Like you deal with it yourself.
Oh, for sure. And I kind of have a good way of doing it. I guess you just get so like conditioned to just like, you just do it, right? But yeah, and I total have middle child in me. So that's why it was kind of like, I think it was kind of unusual for my brother and my sister to see me like that. They were a little bit taken back, like, damn, Nisha, you're going through something. My brother was like so proactive about it. He bought me like a hot yoga pass right away. And he still to this day is, how are you doing? Because
Oh.
he just knows me like so well. My sister too. They knew that.
What was it like for you? Was it what word would you describe, like relief or whatever word it is, would you describe that moment where you did tell your siblings about what life was like for you?
It was super terrifying because again, we just went through the loss, and it wasn't just me that was grieving. It was my brother and my sister as well, right? Told my brother, I remember, I went in my basement and I'm like not okay. And I remember even the conversation now to this day, I was just trying to kind of be like more cash about it, but it wasn't cash. He was like, Nisha, like, it's okay. We all have, we think a lot of times we all have these thoughts, and you just gotta like kind of start taking care of yourself. He's like, I'm going to get you a hot yoga pass, and, try to do something for yourself. And just, we had a conversation or whatever. And I was like, okay. So even just, that was just such a relief for me. But I knew that I had a lot of work to do still. Like that wasn't just it. I was like, hey, there's a lot of work that has to be done here. So I knew that, getting off the phone with him, I was going to still face these ugly things, but I knew I had to get through it. And I knew, like you said, you got to take care of yourself to be able to take care of the people that matter so much to you.
Mm-hmm. You just made a really interesting point when you got off the phone with your brother. You realize I still got to do these things. And sometimes when I talk to family members or friends, like I hear talking, like what's the point of talking? Because the problems are still going to be there. And would you say that, like what would you say in response to that? Do you think talking and telling them was helpful to help you deal with, like you said, there was work ahead of you, or what? Like, what would you say to those folks that are like, who cares? Why do we talk about it? We still have the problem here. What would your response to that be?
Well, talking about it it's huge because it not only teaches you and gives you different outlets, and you don't know how talking to somebody is going to help you. And then secondly, it's for your own self. I think it kind of makes you realize too that like when you say something, it just opens up your world to a little bit of this is okay, or like how else can I figure this out for myself? It kind of gives you validation. Like I spoke about it. It could be like such a small thing, even, we have kids. So if they come home with this, it seems like the biggest problem and they let it off their chest. And then you'll just see that like you had a little conversation about it and you can tell that like they're totally fine after. So it's just talking about it is huge because I think even for ourselves, it gives you that confidence to be able to continue on with either having that conversation with somebody else or figuring out where you need to go with it.
Yeah, I think you say that really well. The confidence, it's like, to me, part of that confidence again is that validation that I'm worth it. So yeah, I still have to do the work to manage these problems, but the person I just talked to helped me see that I'm a good person, I'm worth it, I don't have to suffer. There is a light at the end of this. Whatever it is, I need that encouragement to be able to then, like you said, get going with the work that's needed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So and you know what, like, yeah, people sometimes when you tell people something, they might be like, you know what, not a big deal, move on, whatever, like get over it kind of thing. But never shy away from talking about it. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should bring up what you need to bring up.
So how did you, like you said, you had work ahead of you. So what would you say were like 2 to 3 things that really helped you walk towards that light, take that weight off that you were carrying? What do you think were the strategy sort of things that you did?
Like I went back to basics. I went back to drinking water properly and just taking a minute and saying no and just saying, I'm not going to show up there. I can't do that. I went back to basics. Like I literally went back to basics.
So like you got sleep, like let's talk about the basics, because you make such a big point and we take the basics for granted. And we think we got to do this super complicated treatment over here, which we might have to do
Yeah.
But we haven't even slept or ate or showered or
And like as a new mom, I'm not sleeping, I'm not eating, I'm hurting, my body hurts. So I went back to basics. I started just taking care of myself, just trying to drink water on the daily, started bringing out my crystals again, started focusing on journaling a little bit here and there. And I have a strong sense of faith too. Like I believe in God. I listen to a lot of bot and stuff. So I try to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then once I started getting a little bit more stable, I ended up hiring a sleep trainer for my son. So then I could sleep.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then he started sleeping. I started sleeping. And it was challenging. Like it was very challenging to go through all these things. But I'm glad I did that because sleep is so damn important.
My
So
gosh, is it ever? Like we know our children when they don't get sleep, and we're like big versions of that, right?
yeah, straight up. My kids know like if I don't sleep well. So I just I went back to basics. Basics for me were just focusing on getting I didn't even worry about the working out. I didn't put any pressure on myself for any of that stuff. Just eating meals and doing all that stuff. So that helped a lot.
How did you find, like Sunny, your husband, your household, like you talked about your siblings, how did you and your husband sort of navigate this? So was he aware of to what extreme it was getting for you? Like were you sharing with him or was he thinking you were doing okay too?
No, he knew because I would cry a lot. So he would always he would try, he would always ask me and always like he's so supportive and he's just like a really like gentle soul.
Yeah.
So he's really sweet like that. It's just like, it's almost like a comfort and like a safety that I have with him there.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to speak a whole lot about a lot of things. And I don't even know if I was ready to tell him anything because I didn't even was processing all these things for me was like really challenging. And so I didn't want to just very patient with him too. Like I didn't just be like, I need sleep. And I wasn't always just trying to get mad or anything. I handled like that with him very well. And yeah, he's very sweet, but he was always like, whatever you need, we got to get you whatever you need.
Yeah.
I remember it's always in my head still even saying like, just get the help that you need. And I just said, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly what this goes back to. I was listening to your episode with Harpreet. I think it's episode 23. I found it so cool that that episode was amazing. And he just said that there's like this willingness that you gotta have, whether if it's like dealing with addiction or your own self, whatever you're going through, you gotta have a willingness. Like Sunny, my husband could say, I'm gonna do this for you, but it's gotta be like your own. You gotta vouch for yourself. You gotta kind of stand up for yourself.
Yeah, totally. Like in the most comical way possible. I remember saying to a coworker so many times, I want to win the lottery. And then one day she goes to me, yeah, like I didn't realize like you're really into wanting to win the lottery. Like, do you buy a lot of lottery tickets and stuff? I'm like, no, I actually have never bought one. She's like, yeah. So how are you going to win the lottery? And then, so she's like, what are you willing to do to win the lottery? And it was just the way that question got formed. And then, we that question gets used in mental health a lot. When you're like, I want this problem to go away. And when someone says, okay, but what are you willing to do to make it go away? I think it helps us get really clear about what do I want? What do I need? And also like, what do I have in me? What am I capable of doing? Because maybe my expectation is too high. Like, like you said, you chose in that moment to not put pressure on working out because that's not what you in the moment were willing to do, needed it. And so yet if you had the expectation, well, I got to get back on to my workout routine, then that is going to get in the way of you being able to do the things you need to do because now you're fixated on, fuck, I'm not working out. So it's like in this moment, what am I willing to do? Like realistically, what's possible for me? So I think that is a good point, like, that you picked up from Harpreet, which is, like, where's the will in this? And if there's no will, then we got to start there, right? We got to find that.
He kind of said that his family was just there, damn, you've got this addiction, but what are we really supposed to do for you? It's like that. Like your loved ones, they're going to love you. They're going to be there for you. If you take a stand for yourself, they will be there for you.
And if they're not, then they're not our loved ones.
Exactly. Right? They're your loved ones for a reason and they're going to have your back, but they will support you. And so, I mean, I'm so blessed to have the husband that I have for those reasons. Like he's super supportive, and you know, I hope that everybody has somebody to vouch for them when they stand up for themselves, because that's the hardest thing that you can do is admit that you got shit to work on, right?
Yeah.
But if your life sucks and if everything's just shitty, you got to find ways to kind of figure out how to make it better. And the only person that's going to do that is you.
That's right. That's right. And how did you answer that question, like that Harpreet asked, like what are you willing to do? How would that you know, a couple of years ago, how would she have answered it? What were you willing to do?
I was willing to just do whatever I could to figure it out. Because even I remember talking to somebody too and then just hanging up the phone and being like, oh my God, I feel so much shittier.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if I want to talk to this person ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, hey, well, now what? Find somebody else to talk to. Maybe there's somebody better.
Yeah, but sometimes you make a good point, because sometimes we're tied to loved ones, family members, friends, whoever it is, because of our history together. And then when we start doing like work, you know, like we always look externally to the out, but when we start looking internal and looking at, okay, what do I need? How come I had a good day? What does a bad day look like? What does that being around that person? How does that help me? When you start looking at those things, yeah, you really do flush out, okay, like, wait a minute, maybe my relationship with this person is toxic, or maybe this isn't what I need right now and I need to take a break from them or what. Like we have so many people in our lives, and sometimes we're those people. Like maybe people have shut me away because they're like, this woman here is not good for me, right? So it's like, I think those are important things, because we take those things for granted in terms of what in my environment do I have control over? What can I do different in my own environment? You know, so I think that's a good point of, yeah, that person doesn't make me feel so great, and it's okay to not talk to that. I'm not calling them.
No, straight up. And even like getting therapy and getting help and stuff, like, okay, it's not always going to be like the first person you talk to or the second even or the third. It takes a while, and it might not even be anybody that you even really need to talk to, but it's just getting some of your stuff out helps.
Okay, you just said like the most two brilliant things ever. Okay, so the first thing you said was that I just have to repeat. Sometimes when we go to therapists, it's like a relationship. It's like dating. You know, like people who are on dating apps know the first person on Tinder isn't the one that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, let alone the 10th. It's like therapists. You have to connect with them. Your relationship with your therapist is going to be they say it's 80-20, right? Like 80% of therapy is the relationship you have, that connection you have with your therapist. And then you feel motivated to do the work or go. So if you're not finding that from your therapist, try again and again and again. Like you said, I think that is so important, because a lot of people don't know that and they stop the first time. And the second thing you said there about talking.
Just getting it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting it out. Yeah, this is what happens. Baby brain clearly never goes away. Doesn't matter how old your kids get, Nisha.
Yeah. That's like a whole different topic.
Oh my gosh, I know. I don't even want to have those conversations, because I'm so far removed now. I just saw your little guy coming out in your arms from a nap, and his crying was so cute. But I know it did not feel that way when it was me, you know, in your boat.
Yeah. So like that, all that stuff is like a lot of like deep breaths, a lot of like figuring it out. But now I kind of know how to navigate through stuff. And so it's like, it's awesome, right? I feel blessed to be where I'm at right now. I really do.
Can I ask about your youngest? Postpartum, often when women go through that, when they pull out of it and work through it, they talk about the bond between their baby and them sometimes is impacted. And there's work a mom and the baby have to do to rebuild it. And for some moms over the years, it's guilt. So he's already your baby, the third one. So we already compensate with the baby. But let alone, should you have experience at postpartum, there's like that guilt as well of like, maybe I didn't give him what I gave my other two. Like, did you go through anything like that?
No.
Yeah.
Not with him. I was super there for everything with him. I took care of him like so well. It was so weird. I was going through so much, and then I was able to take care of him so well and just keep his environment and him so happy and comfortable. Like, it's so crazy. Yeah. I don't feel
That's
any
amazing.
No, nothing like that. Yeah, he's He was such a good baby too. And, it was just, I guess like I really wanted to have another baby because like I was like, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And healthy, right? And the things that you get. I think maybe there he served a purpose in that time for you too. If you felt that bond didn't get sort of impacted in that process, I think that's phenomenal. And that also goes to show probably also why you needed the help too, because you were clearly giving so much to make sure that everyone around you is cared for in the way that even your siblings know you to do, right? And
Yeah, it was nice because it was a super distraction, of what was going on with losing my dad there. Because my dad he was my best friend. I would talk to him for like hours on the phone. And, he was such a person that I would just pick up the phone and be like, hey, this is what's going on, Dad. And he would just kind of have some way to make it okay without thinking too much about our conversation. He was just always there for me. And he would always stay over. And so, yeah, he was a huge void for me. But my son was a distraction for sure. And it was a good one. Like, he would bring so much love. Like, the boys, my other two, seeing them with him and that like love and connection. And it was just, a lot of love. Yeah.
What can I ask? Like, what did you learn about yourself after going through that grieving process and losing your dad, who was such a rock in your life?
Oh man, I'm still learning. I think I learned just how to be patient with myself and just giving myself that space. Yeah, and I'm still learning. Like, because I think that loss of a parent it doesn't matter for who it is. Anybody going through a loss of a parent, it's tough. You literally have this person like your whole life and you lose them. You have to figure yourself out again.
Yeah.
It's like your mother, your father, whether they were like super close to you or not close to you, I think it's going to be the same kind of feelings for a lot of people, is that you kind of have to figure yourself out again. It's like a whole different side of you. Like, you change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grieving kind of like a change in you, but losing a parent, it's a tricky thing because you got to kind of like figure out who you are again, and it takes you back and it just brings up so many other things.
I couldn't even imagine. I know I've had it described to me as like you lose a piece of your heart. And so you have to learn that you can't replace that and do stuff to eventually you learn. I think in the beginning you're trying to replace that hole. But when you learn that that's going to be how your heart is moving forward, you find a way to manage it, whether that's, keeping memories close or staying connected with other parts of that person. Yeah. So I can't imagine what it would be to lose that part. Yet we have to all go through it. And again, it's one of those things that we just don't really discuss. And even in our culture, grieving is done in such an interesting way, right? If we think of some of our rituals and our customs and all that, and I'm sure you have too. You see elders and people grieve in all sorts of ways. You have very different extremes. Someone that shows zero emotion to someone that all the auntia that are wailing at the funeral that aren't even connected to the person that passed away. And you're like, easy, auntie. Like, yeah, like relax. Yeah. Like we get it. But like, whoa, so you're just like, where do I fit in this? Like, how am I supposed to grieve? And how did you decide to grieve?
I wouldn't cry. I wasn't the crier, like going everywhere and just crying. And the worst was because day before his funeral, I had to do a COVID test because I was sick and I had COVID. So we had to cancel the funeral. So we had no choice. So I literally had to like watch him getting cremated from my phone off a Zoom or whatever with my baby there. So weird. Yeah, I wasn't like crying in public much or anything, but there was a deep down spot inside of me that was just like hurting. It was more of like a hurting, and now the crying comes out more here and there, and I'll just like cry and have moments and stuff like that. Then it was just different.
Yeah. It's a lifelong process. Do you feel that the healing part of going through that grief with your dad, do you feel like it's starting to feel more manageable, or it's getting to a place where you have more positive moments thinking of him than the initial grief part? Like where are you at in the process?
Definitely like more manageable. I mean, there'll be like, there's days where you have, his like special occasions, like my son's birthday yesterday, things like that, they really come up, and it's okay. Like, I'm not going to put pressure on myself to be, whatever. It's just like, I kind of just go with whatever flow it is. Like on Thanksgiving, I cried like for like 3 hours. I was so upset. I just missed them. Those moments of like being together with your family and stuff, those hurt still. But I think it just takes time. You just kind of like learn to live without that person, and it takes time. And you just gotta, like, if you need to cry, you need to cry.
Yeah, that's good advice, right? Like letting it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
letting it out and being however you need to be. Because each relationship that you have is different, right? Anybody that you lose, it's its own void, and it's so hard to explain to people. And why should you have to explain anything if what that person meant to you? It's just you kind of go through what you got to go through.
So you mentioned you and your dad were close and you guys called each other a lot. So today, if you
Oh,
were going to call him up, what would you tell him?
oh my gosh. Oh, well, I would probably want to thank him first of all, because he was really active in like his own mental health journey. He was really active in his community and his own life, and he would always talk to somebody. And he used to tell me a few times, Nisha, you should try to talk to somebody. There's like, because, he used a lot of like the free resources and stuff. Like, he was super cool, super proactive in his life. And I think that's where I get it from. So I would thank him for always just normalizing this kind of stuff for me.
Yeah, that is super big, and like big shout out to your dad, because that's such a unique position as a South Asian man to be in, where at that age, again, our parents coming in trying to make a life for themselves, and he's at a place where he's acknowledging how important it is to care for yourself. And I think that sounds like an amazing role model, and I feel like he'd be so proud today too to hear what you're doing for yourself. And sounds like you have him really close by, and with the
Yeah.
healing room and this new launch that you're getting to now. I think that's like, I can sense that there's a lot of him that has to do with where you're at.
Yeah, he used to, when he was around, he would sit around with me, and he would talk about like, hey, he would question me so much. Why do you like this stuff? And tell me about it. And he would just find it like so interesting. And I'd be like, Dad, this is not the time. Or like, well, we'll just talk about it later. And now it's so special that he actually wanted to sit and talk to me about stuff. It's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Making time. And I think that's lovely. What is one thing, finding the light and moving to a place where you feel like, okay, I have some skills, I have the ability to take care of myself. What is something that this Nisha that came out from the dark side, what would you go back and tell the Nisha a couple of years ago when there was no light at that time? What would you want to go back and tell her?
To not give up on yourself, I would say to myself. Change is inevitable, and things are going to always change. And I would just tell myself not to give up on myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was in a pretty dark spot. So I think, for me, and I never seen my life like that. I never felt anything like that. So I would just, not to give up.
Yeah. So is there, at this point, I'm going to ask you, is there anything that you wish today we did talk about, or that we brought up that we haven't had a chance to discuss?
No, I think that it's good. I think that take care of yourselves, the importance of self-care, whatever that means to you in a day, just do the best that you can for yourself so you can help the people around you.
So you kind of beat me to it. Is that what you want, your call to action? Because I was going to ask you, what is something that you'd want to leave our listeners with? If they were to take one thing from what you said today, what would you want that one thing to be?
To stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself and just do what you need to do. Ask for help so that, you can help the people that are around you, and you'll be a better person. You got to take that leap for yourself. You got to believe, and if once you do that, you'll see other things opening up. But take the stand for yourself.
Yeah. You have really important points that you've been making today that I really appreciate. Thank you. And I've been working so hard this whole episode to not cut you off. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because you know what happens when you don't cut your guests off? You get the whole version of what they're trying to say, and you don't have to interrupt them and ask them 30 questions. So you talk so much with hope and responsibility. And when I say responsibility, it's that I'm so worthy that I have a right to be responsible. Like, I have a right to take care of myself. It's not a bad thing to say I'm responsible for all these things and maybe even people. It's a privilege. And we can go at it in so many different ways. I mean, your story, you share the dark side, there's the light side, there's the middle child in between side. And, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I have a lot of family support around me. I have in-laws that are supportive. I have my own family that's supportive. So coming from a place that has, people around you and say, you know what, you think like, oh, I'm going to turn to my family and stuff. It's not always easy to turn to them either, right? So that's why it's like, take a stand for yourself and just do what you need to do. You know what you need to do. You got to kind of figure it out for yourself, but do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You put that in a really good place, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening and they can relate that sometimes standing up for yourself and sometimes in our families means you're knocking someone else down, or that other, you're telling that other person that they don't matter. But it's like, who's gonna do that for you? And I think if we do it, standing up for ourselves, and we do it in a way that will probably invite people to want to listen to us, want to stand with us as well. It doesn't have to be done in a way that's so terrible, like I can respectfully stand up for myself. And I feel like you did that. You didn't knock anyone down along the way. You didn't let your worries get in the way. You really thought at the end of the day, like, if I want to be there for my family, what am I willing to do? Harpreet's question that you brought up. And that's really what you did. And I think sometimes we worry about what other people are going to think. And I know in our community, that's why the stigma wins every day, because we worry that if I tell you I'm this weak because I'm struggling, or however we want to put it, you're going to think poor of me. And I've been lately thinking with my own judgments that I'm putting out on other people. Like, I don't want to tell you this thing because I don't want you to judge me. And I'm realizing that no, it's not you that's going to judge me. It's me that's judging myself with those things. And I'm just putting it on you. I'm thinking Nisha's going to judge me if I tell her these things, but I'm actually not comfortable with these things myself. And I need to deal with those on my own and get comfortable with that. So I just think it's like it's a message to all of ourselves, like being responsible for ourselves and not,
the whole thing about what other people say too, like it does play a huge mental effect on people's like everyday lives, because every day you just, what is that person gonna think, or what is this? That's just the worst. It's really, why does it matter? But then you just do it, right? Because I have to stop myself with my own kids too, because I'll do that. And then not to say them what other people are going to think, but it's not enough for them. So it's just a vicious cycle for sure.
What does matter is like, okay, I can only start with myself. That's all I can do. So like you said, what am I willing to do about that? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
We are our own walking billboards. So how do we want to advertise ourselves, right? So it's like, I want you to get the best version of me. And in order for that, I got to go take care of me. So.
Yeah. And whatever that means, to everybody, it starts with you.
Well, yeah. And you don't even realize how you're role modeling. Like, you had no idea going through what, like, one of your worst times and reaching out and asking for help, whether it was with me or your cousin. And I'm sure you left your cousin probably also feeling hopeful. Like, I don't want to speak for her, but she also experienced someone close to her with suicide. And she has this opportunity to give back in a different way. And I would have felt very honored if I was her, which I was when you reached out to me as well, in this way of, when we ask other people for help, they want to help us. Don't you want to help someone when they reach out to you? Like, if I message you and say, hey man, can you help me? Doesn't that make you feel good? Because I I asked you. We don't think of it that way. I like being asked for help.
Oh yeah, I know for sure. Like, I think people generally like to help people. And she's told me after that recently, I think she's told me that she's helped a few people about this. I know this one person she told me she had worked with or whatever, and she went through the same thing. She literally had to take time off work, and she kind of just like helped her out with it. So if you're aware of something, like, you stand up for yourself, and look at how many people she's helped already.
Yeah. Right.
And she doesn't even do that for a living or anything. She's just having these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. Because she's not afraid. Right. And no different than you, not afraid. You came on today willing to be vulnerable and not afraid. It's like, who gives a fuck what people think? because these conversations are way more important. And I'm sorry I swore, and I know your kids are going to listen to it. My apologies. But in fairness to me, I do mark the explicit thing. So I do have to like have at least one swear word if I'm going to mark the explicit thing, right? When you post these episodes. So I don't know about your house, but my house, my kids know the swear words. So my kids have a swear jar for me, and I'm always like, it's not swearing if I'm rapping along to my songs, and they're like, you can't find a loophole, Mom.
Well, I mean, middle fingers up is to swear.
Well, it is, but it's also, this is sometimes what we got to do to stand out. As I'm giving you two big middle fingers, but it's like
love it.
Right. We gotta. It's like we gotta stand up to some of these things.
Hey, your logo is awesome. No, it's great. It is. You gotta middle fingers up to some shit and just get your stuff done, get ducks in a row, and just have faith.
Yeah, it's not every day we get to feel like who gives a fuck. I know there's some days we wake up and we're like, I give a fuck what everyone thinks. But today's one of those days where if anyone's having a shitty day and is very worried about what other people think, Nisha and I are here to help you say who gives a fuck. We got that. We got you today. So, maybe tomorrow you'll help us.
All right.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm gonna thank you so much for coming on. I was very grateful when you said, yeah, man, I'll do it. And we did it. And I know there are a lot of people listening today that are going to get a lot from this, because a lot of people have been having this kind of conversation of how do I ask? How do I ask for help? And to me, this is like one of the most important things we can bring up if we want to end the stigma, right? Of stigma of mental health is we have to be able to bring it up. We have to be able to say something. We don't know exactly how to say it, but we have to be able to say, I'm not good. I'm not well. I need help. Let Nisha's story, right? Help be an example of it's possible to get out of that dark place, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, start somewhere. One person, even the one person, you'll give yourself more confidence, even just that one time. And then you keep doing it. And then, it might take a little while, but don't give up and just keep asking and keep vouching for yourself.
Well said.
Don't settle.
That's right. So for everyone listening, as you know, these conversations are door openers. And if you'd like to be part of this door opening conversation, you know where to find us. If you'd like to be part of other conversations and topics, you also know where to find us. We really appreciate guests like Nisha that come on, and we really appreciate listeners like yourselves that continue to devote time to our passion projects. So thank you to everyone listening. Thank you again to our lovely guest, Nisha.
Thank you so much for having me on and letting me share some of my story. And just, I hope that people out there listening, it resonates with some people.
Yeah, it will. I know it will.
Always nice to talk to you.